Welcome everyone. Today we are going to explore a paradigm-shifting concept in relativistic physics based on Kautar Kanief's groundbreaking work, the theory of the path of light. For over a century, our understanding of space-time transit has been bound by classical constraints. Today, we break those boundaries. We will walk through the path of light, a theory that mathematically and geometrically proves travel at light speed is not only theoretically possible, but structurally engineered through the volumetric manipulation of space-time itself. We begin our journey with Part 1, the photon paradox. To build a bridge to the stars, we must first address the subtle geometric and dimensional contradictions that have quietly sat at the foundation of modern physics since the dawn of the 20th century. Let's look closely at Albert Einstein's famous equation, E equals mc squared. When we analyze the speed of light constant, c squared, through its metric SI units, we get meters squared per second squared. Geometrically speaking, any squared metric describes a flat two-dimensional surface area, not a three-dimensional object. Under classical photon theory, a photon is mathematically treated like a flat square plate moving through space. Here lies the paradox. If a photon is a flat 2D square moving at velocity c, any observer or traveler moving diagonally across that square's interior would traverse a diagonal diameter at a speed of c square root of 2. This breaks the speed limit of light. Even if we try to correct this by expanding the particle into a 3D cubic box of c cubed, the diagonal velocity limit jumps to c square root of 3. This tells us that treating light as rigid, standalone particle boxes fails to reflect its structural truth. Light must instead be understood as a continuous, fluid geometric volume. This brings us to Part 2, space-time geometry. Having identified the dimensional flaws of the particle model, we must now build a truer geometric description of how light actually propagates through the fabric of space and time. Because of time dilation, as a beam of light travels outward from a point source, its spatial footprint naturally widens as time progresses. This draws a perfect conical volume through the 4 dimensions of spacetime. If we integrate the standard formula for a cone's volume over the propagation height, defined as the constant speed of light times elapsed time, h equals cort, and factor in the opening angle of the beam, theta, we arrive at the unified volume equation, V. This elegant formula mathematically proves that light is not a series of disconnected points, but a physical spacetime volume governed strictly by the velocity constant c, elapsed duration, and source orientation. While light naturally expands outward as a cone, if we want to use it for travel, we cannot let its energy disperse infinitely. We must stabilize it. To do this, we look to the visible light spectrum. When white light diffracts, different wavelengths expand at different angles. Over a standard 1 nanosecond interval, violet light expands to a radius of 0.127 meters, while red light expands to a much wider 0.253 meters. However, look at what happens when we strategically pair opposing ends of the visible spectrum. Pair 1, violet and red, gives us a combined radius of exactly 0.380 meters. Pair 2, blue and orange, yields 0.362 meters. Pair 3, green and yellow, yields 0.373 meters. An incredibly uniform equilibrium emerges. By forcing every single point within our light beam to simultaneously glow with all complementary colors of the visible spectrum, we fill the geometric gaps of expansion. We structurally lock the maximum boundary of the beam at approximately 0.380 meters. The naturally expanding space-time cone is compressed and stabilized into a constant radius space-time cylinder. We have successfully harnessed a non-diverging column of high-density, focused c-cubed energy, a stable conduit capable of carrying physical mass. Now we enter Part 3, engineering the c-squared drive. We have the mathematics and the geometry. But how do we translate this volumetric theory into physical propulsion mechanics that can carry a spacecraft? Because light is massless, it cannot exert thrust through traditional mass acceleration. Instead, it must utilize radiation pressure derived from its geometric momentum. By rewriting our volume and pressure equations around a unified engine power constant, K, we isolate the true mechanics of our drive. To manifest this in the physical world, we design the engine like a specialized electromagnetic generator. The primary source combines a high-frequency hydrogen plasma core with high-purity quartz crystal optics. We use quartz for its piezoelectric properties and its ability to split light into the precise complementary wavelengths required for our c-cube cylinder. The secondary source consists of electromagnetic induction coils lining a funnel-shaped stator that perfectly mirrors the curve of our c-squared light cone. When excited, energy rapidly amplifies from c to c squared in the generator's throat, exerting immense radiation pressure directly upon the spacecraft. Time and light are fundamentally integrated. To demonstrate how this works in practice, let's examine an interplanetary corridor between Earth and Mars. An Earth day is exactly 24 hours, whereas a Martian sol is 24 hours and 39.5 minutes. When we overlay these clocks to synchronize travel, we find a distinct phase shift. Exactly 12 minutes elapsed on Earth corresponds to 12 minutes and 20 seconds on Mars. Rather than a hurdle, this 20-second variance over a 12-minute baseline gives us the exact coordinate alignment needed to anchor our travel corridor. By integrating these precise planetary timeframes into our unified light cone formula, we can calculate the exact space-time volume, delta 5, that our engineered light cylinder must envelop to safely carry our spacecraft between the two. Is this all just mathematics? No. We have physical proof from modern single-photon imaging techniques using single-photon avalanche diode or SPAD cameras. First, these experiments show that a single photon is responsible for carrying a single pixel part of an image. Since a pixel is a flat square on a screen, but must be a 3D cube in physical space to have sides, this proves that light has an inherent, cell-like volumetric structure. Second, SPAD cameras capture individual photon arrivals down to billionths of a second. The resulting, quote, tilted view maps out the precise sequence of steps or stages a physical body takes to walk through a time frame at light speed. Finally, the raw, unfiltered data of photon arrivals between 0 and 50 nanoseconds reveals a widening funnel or conical shape, visually confirming the volumetric spacetime equations at the heart of our theory. By unifying the geometry of quartz, the physics of light volumes, and the overlay of planetary clocks, we open a brand new pathway to the stars. The volumetric spacetime bridge stands open. Thank you for your attention. This presentation introduced the theoretical foundations, engineering concepts, and possible applications of the path of light theory. I welcome your questions, comments, and suggestions for future research and experimental validation. The final slide lists the image sources used throughout this presentation. These images are included for illustration purposes to support the engineering concepts and discussions presented today. Thank you once again for your attention.